Hi, my lovely people, and welcome yet again to another series of interviews and podcasts I have made with very special people to bring you a quality and rich content that will support you on your journey of becoming a great, confident speaker in a foreign language. Enjoy! Hi, Petra, how are you today?
Good morning, Katya. I'm very well. How about yourself?
I'm very, very well. Thank you for joining me for another edition of my podcast. I'm really, really happy to have you here with me. And I will just start. When we first met, we talked about you and your personal journey as well as your business journey. And what was really interesting is that I called you serial entrepreneur because you've made a very big impact on me and also I think on the business world. We'll talk about this absolutely. But can you start at the beginning? What was your first, so how did you start? Were you ever employed before you went into your businesses? Or how did you start your journey? When did you get the idea of becoming a businesswoman?
First of all, thank you, Katya, for inviting me to your podcast. I really appreciate it. So, looking back, I would say my journey actually started 24 years ago. I worked as a student in a translation company. Their managing director actually just quit. So they needed somebody to work in their administration. There was another student who said, you know what, I'm going for 3 days to London. I really need somebody to take care of the things. And I can give you the job right now because I think you're suitable. So basically, I went on a job interview that lasted like 2 hours. It looked like I was a person of trust, and they gave me the keys. And the next day, I started working. I was there alone. I only got like basic information on how to start and everything. So the rest is history. So after working there for 6 months, I got a job position to be a managing director there. It was actually a big surprise for me because it was a Czech company. I was 21 at that time. I had no degree. I studied international relations at that time. So, yeah, I was a student. I was committed to work. I knew a couple of languages, so I was able to communicate with different clients. And I was the youngest within the whole company of around 23 subsidiaries all over Europe. And about 80 employees. So after being there for 6 months and the job position that I got offered, I took it on. I spent there for 2 years. And after that, there was a big project that came to realization. And I asked my boss and I said, you know what, we would be able to take this job if we would invest certain amount of money that we would be able to get back within 2 or 3 months. And he said, no, it's a huge investment. We're not willing to do that. And I was thinking about it after being there for 2 years, and I knew that I'm capable of undertaking that project. And I said to him, okay, it's a subtitling job. It's not a direct translation job. How about I quit my job here? I undertake this project.
Wow.
Would you be able to allow me that? Because I have also, of course, had a contract signed. I was not able to work with other agencies at that time, etc. So he said, yeah, if you think you can do it, just go for it. And I
Wow.
did. And in the first year, I made more profit and more turnover than they did in two
Wow.
years that I've been there. So that's how I started.
Wow, wow, amazing. I mean, this leap, like you made this, or this jump that you made, a lot of people would not do it. They would not, first of all, recognize, or even if they recognize the opportunity, they are then calculating, like sitting down and say, okay. And I think most of the we would find, including me probably, we would find, like negative sides. And then we would just stop and say, nah, I'm not doing this. It's too much of a risk. Can you take us into your procedure? Do you have any strategic plans before you go into this? Because we will learn that you did also this with a couple of other projects you invested and so on. So what is the procedure? So how do you actually, I don't know, go to talk to them or do you do your own research? What's the strategic plan behind this?
So whenever I start a new project or whenever I established a new company, it was always, I would say, a gut feeling and at the same time a research, of
Okay.
course. There are always pros and cons. It's life, right? But you have to have a leap of faith that maybe you trust your abilities and trust the knowledge that you possess and the skills that you possess, and that you're able to do it. I understand that not every individual is willing to take risks. I am at the same time, I would say, to be on the safe side too. But at the same time, I would always say a failure is not an option on my end. So I bite my tongue or bite my nails or whatever strongly that I can do it. Then that's that gut feeling that drives me towards saying, yeah, you should do it and go for it.
Oh, very, very well. When we were talking before the podcast, before the interview, you said something very, very interesting. You said that, I always try to look at things a little bit different. So, like looking for solutions. So, if you find a system or a product, right, and you find interesting, you try to find a solution to it, or maybe make it a little bit more different, maybe upgrade it, yeah? Would
Yeah.
also this play a big role in this, how you decide what project to take? Or do people actually come to you? This is another of my questions, with the investments and things like that.
Yeah, there are people who are approaching me and say, "Hey, we should go and do business together." But at the same time, I'm like, "Okay, so what's your part gonna be? How much are you going to contribute to that?" Because if you just think you're gonna use my knowledge and my brain and my skills, it's not gonna happen. All right. So I need to have people around myself that can say, I'm willing to invest my time and energy. Because I always say, I have a kind of like, not an anecdote, but I would say that a success, people see, a person as a successful entrepreneur, but at the same time, they do not think of how many sacrifices that person had to take within that period of life to get somewhere. So I always, when somebody tells me about the word success, I always see it as a tip of an iceberg. You maybe see it a couple of meters above the sea level, but the majority is underneath the sea. So this is how I would see it. But definitely, yeah, people do approach, and if they think they're just gonna, enjoy the fruit of my labors, I would say no. I would politely decline. A mutual energy and a mutual effort for sure. I do understand that what I bring to the table, I try to have people around me I can also learn from. Does I always have an approach that different people and different approaches can do great things.
Absolutely. Thank you for this. So how did your journey evolve? Because I already jumped a little bit ahead and we talked about now investments or how does the procedure goes on. But tell me, so this was your first company, your first experience, let's say, with the business world. So what was then the next step? What did you do then after you made this huge project and a lot of profit? You saw that the business is good. So what was your next step in this business journey?
So in 2003, I started my own translation business, and that project for subtitling ended within a year. So I was like, you know what? I need to find something else, or I need to turn to other areas of expertise so we can gain more money, right? And I just started doing classical or regular translations, court translations, things like that. And then in 2008, as we all remember, there was another crisis, right? We were not for automotive industry, and there was huge decline in receiving jobs related to automotive translations. So it was another gap that I was, as an entrepreneur, you always are faced with ups and downs, right? Prepared for them. And in that case, I said, we already had a couple of people employed. And I said, you know what, we need to focus on other areas of expertise. So at that time, we focused more on medical devices, pharmaceuticals. And we were able to gain quite a lot of clients in that area. They're still with us today. That's 15 years ago, basically. So we grew from that. But in 2012, after I was just finishing another certificate on marketing, I said, what if I start a new company? And my partner at the time said, you're crazy. Like, you're doing another university degree, you're doing another certificate related to marketing. you're already working within your company. Do you really need another challenge? And I was like, yeah, I think I do. So in 2012, I started a company called Troshka Academia. That company was actually doing extracurricular activities for children aged 3 to 14. We also did escape room for kids, birthdays. And in 2019, I got approached by two entrepreneurs and asked me if I would be willing to sell my business. And at the time, I was thinking, you know what, why not? Because a lot of things happened in my personal life a year before that contributed to this. We can talk about that personal thing later on, but I took up the opportunity and I sold my business in 2019. And then in 2020, so a year after, just when the pandemic started, my business partner and I bought another translation company called Veris. And we bought it simply to have more market share because both of the companies had different market shares and different clients coming from different industries. So it was pretty straightforward move, I would say. And I can proudly say that the company that we bought did not have to get any credit at the bank or leasing or anything else because both companies were doing pretty well. And we paid out to the owner the company within 3 years. So I'm really proud of that thing. And then 2025 happened and I was asked to join another company that started drop shipping in US.
Wow.
And me and my business partner, who I am a co-owner with Bureau 2000 and Veris, we decided to buy a brand called Loving Paw, which would be a natural cosmetics for dogs and cats. And it would be 100% natural cosmetics for the
For the little, for the
for the pets. Yeah.
Lovely, but this is like a little bit different now from all the, the companies, or let's say the industry is a little bit different. Yeah, you said drop shipping in the US. Why US and why drop shipping? There is some story right behind it that and it has to do also with your lovely accent, by the way. You speak very well. And tell me, have you spent any years abroad and where did you go?
Oh, yes, I did. I spent 2 years in California, but that was in between when I was still a student. So that was like 25 years ago. And then I spent another 2 years in Canada. So I just returned from Canada last year. And all the companies that I was working with, of course, I was able to work remotely. It was not a problem because we had a system in place that we established in 2006. It's basically an app, as you would call it, that enabled all our project managers as well as us, the owners, to be able to work from anywhere in the world, communicate with the clients and translators and other linguists. And I am really happy that we were already thinking about this so far in advance. So when the pandemic started, it really did not affect our business.
Awesome. Yeah, that's okay.
But yeah, I lived in US for a while and in Canada. So, but I always been, keen on languages. So I do speak a couple of them. So English is not my only foreign language that I speak. But when I try to speak it, I try to speak it as properly as possible. Of course, I make mistakes. I'm not a native linguist, but still, yeah.
Yeah. So what languages do you speak besides English?
Well, I studied Russian and Chinese at the
Wow.
Faculty of Arts. I did not finish that degree though. But of course, if anyone asks me which languages I speak, I would say, of course, Slovenian, which is my native tongue.
Yes.
But English, German, Russian, a little bit of Italian, Spanish, and Chinese.
Sweet. That's nice. That's nice. So if we go back to these systems, so is this now the last company or the system because you're actually, like you said, it's drop shipping, so it's physical products, yeah, and the translation companies are basically services. Is the system a little bit different, or tell me I'm more interested in, let's say, customer journey or customers. How do you take care of the customers? Is this the same approach that you use, or is it a little bit different? Probably also the people profiles are a little bit different. Yeah, I mean, with the pet product and then with the services. Can you maybe take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. When people ask me, so do you do B2B, meaning business to business, or B2C, business to customer? My reply would be it's H to H, human to human, basically. Yeah, of course, I work with a CEO of a multinational corporation, but in the end of the day, I still work with that particular person who represents them company, right? So I think the approach that I always took was, especially when I was living in the US and when I came back, I said to myself, you know what? The customer service over there is really on a high level. And this is something that I always took, that whenever I was dealing with a project or whenever I was talking to a client, I think it was really important for the client to be heard, to make sure their needs are met, and that we deliver the quality or even better than what the client expected. But this goes back to when I was working as a student at a call center. I was working there for 2 years after I finished my secondary school. I worked as part-time, of course, because I was at the university at the same time. So I had to do about, let's say, 700 calls per day. Meaning those were incoming calls, right? Those were not outbounding calls. But still, they told me when we had a training in the beginning, when we came there, they said, you know what? The client doesn't really know and doesn't really care if they are fifth in the row or they are 700th in
Wow,
the
very
row
important.
that day. You have to make them feel that they are one and only and that their needs are met. And it doesn't matter if you're tired by the end of the day. You still have to pick up that phone and say, hello, my name is Petra. How can I help you today? Which information
Yes.
do you need? And things
Yeah.
like that. So I think it's really important that the customer service and the level of customer service that I saw in US was something that I really wanted to bring here in whichever business that I did, because I think this is the reason why the clients come back. It's difficult to get a new client,
Yes.
but it's even more difficult to maintain the client,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Exactly.
nurture that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're doing a good job, of course, people will notice that, right?
Definitely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you first meet the new client, you have to put them in the client's journey, I would say. Like, how can I maybe maintain this relationship then longer, and also, anything that that I give them or provide them with anything that they want, plus some extra, right? So to keep them with you, so they trust you, so the bond is building. And like you say, it's sometimes even more difficult to maintain them. Absolutely. Very well. So let's go a little bit off, not off the topic, but let's take a look at some facts, right? So you're a woman in business, yeah? And there are not, I would believe, a lot of women, especially in this translation industry, or are there, who are the CEOs or owners of the companies, or in general in the business world. I think, women who, okay, maybe they are the CEOs, they own companies, like investing, selling, and then buying other companies. It's not so regular, at least I think in the Slovenia, or maybe I'm wrong, but please, let's talk a little bit about this. So how does it feel to be a woman in business, right? Do you see any differences, and how do maybe people approach you? Because, like, okay, now she's a very tough woman, right? Businesswoman.
It really depends how people would perceive me, but I can remember when I started, it was really difficult. I remember being, as a CEO, I remember being a woman within the translation business. Here in Slovenia, there were only male CEOs.
Wow, okay.
So whenever I would come, let's say, to a tender, and I would say, hello, I'm here for the tender opening, or they would say, or I would just say, good afternoon, and they would say, yeah, for students just go left. And I would say, well, I'm not a student, I'm here to participate with the tender opening. And they would say, oh, okay, well, you need to go in this room. So
Wow.
they would immediately think, okay, she's young,
She's
right?
in.
She's, I'm not gonna say a brat, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
she's a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
student
yeah.
or whatever. She's not an important person.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to say that I'm a very important person now, but definitely I had my share of obstacles being in the business industry as a woman. That's for sure. It happened to me, for example, I will never forget this, to be honest. It was 17 years ago. I was in a conference, on a translation conference in Madison. And of course, there were important CEOs, and I was the only woman there with that panel. And of course, we were shaking hands. And there was a guy who said, I'm really sorry, but I don't shake hands with ladies.
Wow.
For
Really?
me, it was, yeah, it was literally like,
Wow.
honestly, I did not know how to react, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
mean,
But then I just said, okay, I felt a bit embarrassed, to be quite honest. At the same time, I was thinking, so is it his cultural view or is it
yeah,
his
yeah,
religious view? I do
yeah,
not know, but it would be
exactly.
completely different, or it would be professional thing of him. That's how at least I would approach, is if he would say, you know what, I do not shake hands shake due to this fact, and I would
Yeah,
understand it. But
yeah.
even the other male entrepreneurs who were there, other men, they were surprised.
Wow.
So I just looked at one, he smiled at me, I smiled at him, and we were like, okay, what is this guy doing? But
Wow.
I was just like, I played it cool and I was like, okay. But I know today I would probably have a different approach. I would probably say, okay, I understand, but would you clarify maybe the reason? Why is it so?
Yes.
I think it would be a professional thing to do. This is how I would approach
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Interesting facts. Interesting facts. So, would you say that translation industry is very tough for women in general, or is it a translation industry a tough industry? Let's say because not a lot of people actually have, they don't actually maybe understand this industry, right? Because it's not industry that it's like very popular. Let's say in general.
Yeah, I would say there are some misconceptions within the translation business, especially now, when we're talking about Google Translate or when we're talking about ChatGPT. Then some people would even say, "Well, why would I even use your services?"
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the clients who've been with us for 15, 20 years, of course, they know what translation service is actually all about. We want to deliver top-notch quality, right? This is the first thing. And whenever a certain client is approaching or wants to target different markets, of course, their product or their service needs to be localized.
yes.
So if we're talking about something that needs to be translated for Mexican market or Spanish market, this is not the same because Mexican Spanish or European Spanish, they do differ. And this is something that really needs to be emphasized. But also, I would say there are some misunderstandings, such as, anyone who speaks a little bit of English, especially here in Slovenia, this is what I would say. Because I would say that in Slovenia, people are quite keen on languages, right? On speaking different foreign languages
We are.
because we're forced to, Slovenia is a small country, so we're forced to speak other languages. But the misconception, I would say, is anyone who knows a little bit of English can be a translator, or anyone a little bit bilingual can be a translator, or is just replacing words, or Google Translate is good enough for me. I always say if you're using it for personal things or personal matters, yeah, go for it. But if you want to make it
Yeah.
professional, then you really need to trust somebody who knows not just the language, because the target language in this case is very important. For example, I know how to speak English, right? My Slovenian is pretty good as well. But do I really know how to use the commas and all those things,
Right.
So I
Right.
think this is really important to emphasize. And the other thing is that people think one translator can translate everything. And they forget that there are also areas of expertise. For
Yes.
example, when I mentioned before doing translations for automotive, for example, we're doing translations for those car service manuals. diagnostics. So it doesn't mean it's just the user manual that you buy in the end and you know how to use the radio and other other things on your dashboard of your car, but also things behind it. When you go to a car service and your car has has one light blinking and they need to check it out, this is usually the user manual that we do for those people working there. Or when I said medical devices, if you have a headache and people, or I mean doctors don't know what's wrong with you and they will send you to MRI, we would be the ones doing the translations for those particular devices.
Wow, wow. So very, very important, let's say, part in the chain or in this, journey or process. Absolutely. And this is what people actually they just don't see. And it's, I mean, logical in a way, yeah, because we take everything almost for granted when we go to these places, right? I mean, they are experts, they should know, but behind these experts,
Yeah.
actually a big team of people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, this is so interesting. So, talking about, let's go a little bit maybe on the personal level, let's say. So, what are I mean, because you are in this business, like, okay, translation is definitely based on languages and communication, straightforward, right? But also the other businesses, I believe very, very much in communication has to be really proper. Not only to customers, but also inside the company, right? So the communication is really important. And what I also a lot of times notice, let's say, or I think is very important, is also the value system, right? The value system that you have, so the core system. Can you tell us a little bit what are your inner values that actually drive you or that guides you through the journeys? What would be like the first value? Is it respect? Is it family? What are the values that you have for your businesses or for
I would
yourself?
say employees. I would say people. So I know, for example, that if I want to grow as a company, I cannot do the translations into 20 languages. I personally cannot do it. I'm not doing translations for almost 20 years now already, right? My job is to make sure that whoever is employed, they have all the necessities that they need in order to get their job done and done to the best of their abilities according to the quality that the client expects or even exceeds that. So I think I am aware that without the people who work within our company, our employees, I would not be able to be where I am today. Because I always say that the company is as strong as it is its weakest link. And I think the maintaining good relations with employees is very important. This is what I
Absolutely.
would say is the first thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So you went also through personal trials, right? You mentioned before that there was something going on in your personal life. Can you maybe share a little bit about this? And also, how did this affect you, maybe affect the relationships then in your companies? Yeah. So, I believe you probably went through a lot of personal transformations.
Of course, as every person, when you grow, when you get older, you of course change. But also, I try to grow as a person every day. I think it's very important you're not stuck on status quo level. I think this is what it should be done because this, in the end of the day, when I do a recap of the day, I say to myself, you know what? I thought I would not be able to do it, but I trusted myself and I was able to surpass that. It means that your body is basically a machine, it's a
Yeah.
tool, and you should be able to use it. There have been some personal struggles that I've faced, of course. After 14 years with being with my partner, we broke up. That was 7 years ago. At that time, I also got diagnosed with burnout. So it was a personal struggle because it all happened within the same month. So it was me breaking up with my partner. The person who I said in Otroška Academia should be assigned as a CEO, she quit and went to another company.
Wow.
Then my friend, my best friend in US at the time got diagnosed with a throat cancer. Luckily, there was no throat cancer. And my grandma died. So a lot of things that happened within a month. So I was just like, and of course I got sick, right? So I was like, yeah, this is just too much to handle.
Right,
Even
right.
I personally think that I'm quite a strong-willed person and quite resilient one too. But at that time I was like, you know what? Petra, you need to focus on one thing solely and then gradually build up from there. But this wasn't the only struggle or struggles that happened. In 21, that was like 4 years ago, I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
Oi.
So they found it in fourth stage cancer, and I was like, okay. When I talked to my oncologist, he said, you know what? There are three options that we can do for you. We operate you, and everything's fine. We operate you, and you die. Or we operate you, we do the operation, and we will try to fix you, but you will not be completely fine. So I would say, after being diagnosed with this cancer, of course, my autoimmune system really had to start tle bi se ustavila, ker ne znam povedati lepš. Okay. Bom takole rekla. So my autoimmune system really went berserk, I would say, to build it up from scratch again. And I would not, I am cancer free, or I would say cancer is in a remission. You have to be in a remission for 5 years in order to say you're cancer free. So I'm not there yet. I still have 1 year to go, but I think I'm pretty good at it. I'm trying to maintain my life the way it is. Of course, I'll be on meds for forever, right? Until the end of my life. I also got some other diagnoses such as diabetes and PCOS and things like that. But I'm trying to focus on my health first, because health is a priority. And if I'm not healthy, then I cannot work. Sometimes I also see, I'm going to be 46 this year. My mind is still sharp. It's not as sharp as it was 20 years ago, right? But my head would still want me to do something, and my body just doesn't allow it. So I try now to listen to my body more regularly in order to see the signs where I'm working too much, or when I need more peace. Or being more relaxed with myself.
What a fantastic in a way. I mean, your journey is really a journey of a lot of, let's say, challenges. And I believe that now you're really, going into this healing and into, let's say, more positive direction. Yeah, that's I think a really good one.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. It's like we have to go through a lot of personal, but also other, stuff to be able maybe to be even more grateful, or just stop and, like you said, let's focus on one thing and then continue, right? Especially when we get sick, I think we really reboot, like, okay, now let's take one step at a time, not everything at once.
You know how they say, when you're healthy, you have many wishes or challenges,
True.
but when you're sick, you only have one wish, and
Yeah,
that is
that's
for your
true.
health. And
Yeah, that's true.
that's really true.
Absolutely. Everyone who went through any kinds of health issues know that this is absolutely 100% true. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So, where can people actually find you? I mean, if I would need any translations, do you also work like, do you also do general translations? Where can people find you?
Well, definitely, the most clients come to us through our website. Of course, we do advertising as well. Many of them already know us by heart. But in general, yeah, it would be through LinkedIn, or it would be through our websites. We do not offer only regular translations. We would not be, let's say, translating Harry Potter books or anything like that. So we more focus more on areas of expertise, such as working for European Commission and Parliament. So I would say also business related topics such as insurance, finances, annual reports, automotive, which I already mentioned before, IT, of course. Which did I also forget? I don't think so. I think I mentioned the majority of them. We focus more or less from English and German and French into Slovenian and other Eastern European languages. So this would be our core business. And we also do certified translations. So especially if someone gets married or they want to move somewhere, and they need a translation of an official document, this is what we do. Other thing, of course, when we're talking about not just immigration, but in general, when people are moving here in Slovenia, we also provide Slovenian for foreigners. So we teach them Slovenian language. And we also provide a custom-made foreign languages for different clients, different companies that want their employees to excel in their foreign language knowledge.
I see, I see. Wow. Okay, okay. Awesome that you actually teach Slovene. I think there is not a lot of, let's say, language schools that do this, reverse. Usually they teach Slovene, the foreign languages. Okay, perfect. So if we go now to the conclusion or to the end of this podcast, tell me, so what are your plans for the future now? You
Well,
started a
that's
new business, right? Yeah, the
yeah,
Loving Pop.
definitely. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Definitely, my primary focus would be to do the new rebranding of the Loving Paw brand to target more markets than the previous owner did. Also, trying to add maybe different products, and that would be my core business at this point. I'm luckily enough to say that my other business partner is able to undertake all the other responsibilities within. I am able to focus on Loving Paws completely, and I'm thankful for that. And that also means that he entrusts me with the knowledge and the skills that I possess, that I'm able to start something from scratch again. Even though
Yes.
it's a completely different industry, as we talked before,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was more or less focused on the service providing industry, but this one is more product oriented.
Yes, of course. And when, if people want to buy in Slovenia, are they available also in Slovenia? Because you said that there is a US market that's opening up. Do you also ship or sell in Slovenia as well, these products?
Yeah, definitely right now. When I mentioned US before, that was just for drop shipping and it was not meant for the natural cosmetics. But this Loving Paw was more or less available in Slovenia and in Croatia. We now want to expand it to the Balkans and to Austria and Germany first. The next step would be going to Scandinavia, but these are only projections in the next few years, of course. But this would be the focus right now. We have to make sure that we do the rebranding and focus on just a few products, not doing 150 things, but I rather do three
Yeah,
and do all of those 100%.
yeah, yeah. Oh, sounds really, really awesome. So, Petra, thank you very much for your time and thank you for being with me today. I wish you a lot of success on your journey. And for everyone who is watching, absolutely check out Petra's website if you need translations or if you need some new products for your pets as well.
Thank you so much, Katya, for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been really wonderful speaking to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.